Welcome to the Squad Games Podcast. Squad Games Podcast.
So, Adrian, did you know that 4 of the top 8 ate at the same restaurant the night before the tournament started?
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I genuinely didn't know that. No.
You, Shane, me, and Nick.
Oh yeah, that's right.
For
That's
Nova,
right.
we all ate at that the Lucky Strikes burger, and I wanted to know, what did you order?
Oh, I ordered the El Jefe, the spicy one.
Okay, this is not going where I hoped.
This is not the answer you expected.
So I was looking. So I was looking at the chicken burgers because we were all talking about our podcast and like chicken burgers and stuff. And then Nick looked at me and he's like, "You better put some meat on that bones." You know, like say,
Yeah.
you better eat a steak. You know. So I was like, all right. We're gonna have him on soon, and he can say exactly what he said.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I looked at him and I was like, hell yeah, I will. So I looked at the burgers and I picked the Lucky Burger, and I specifically asked them, I was like, hey, what's in your Lucky sauce? Because I need it for tomorrow. So I was really hoping that you also got the Lucky Burger, because then we could have had like this weird conspiracy thing happening. And now I have to ask Shane. So
No, you guys. I was eating with Shane at the same table as him, and I don't remember what he got, but he didn't get the El Jefe. So maybe that was his downfall.
yeah, maybe.
He didn't get
was
the
at Jefe.
spice.
See?
Yeah,
Me,
that's what he needed.
your El Jefe lasted 2 days, right? My Lucky Burger only lasted 1.
Yeah.
But
But
how was that burger?
Mine? Oh yeah, it was great. I mean, it was a great place. I mean, Shane was just like, I'm craving a serious burger. I was like, you know what? Like, whatever, let's hang out, let's do it. And it was a really good place. I was like really impressed with the neighborhood, all the restaurants, like the service as well, like the quality of the food, the speed. Like, it was really good. Like coming from New York, where sometimes like quality of service can be very, very hit or miss. I was like very, very happily. I was impressed.
yeah, I also had to walk around alone a couple times in Washington, D.C. And I was like, it was way nicer than walking alone in Baltimore. Let's just say that. It was really Nova took place in a really nice neighborhood.
Yeah, it did. Honestly, it really did.
The place was sick. We stayed in a hostel right across the way, and I really like hostels. I don't know if anyone's ever stayed in a hostel. Now, I asked her, I was like, man, this looks like a hostel. She's like, we're a hostel hotel. And I was like, shut up. You're a hostel.
Yeah, exactly. If it has a hostel in the name, it's a hostel.
How do you have a hotel? Yeah.
I'm a little bit past my hostel days, unless I'm like really on like a crazy adventurous backpacking trip. But for the tournament, I'm really all about, I need my own room. I need like my own space. It needs to be like, I got my like stuff set up. I need like go back there and have like my safe zone to like
Decompress.
Decompress and like review like other factions and just like think about it and like play some music and get pumped up the morning of,
Absolutely.
I'm all for that. I'm all for that. Yeah.
Have you seen The Queen's Gambit?
I have. Yeah. Is there a second season now? I just saw the first season.
No, just the first season. But what you just described was like in the last few episodes when the Russian dude is in his hotel room just looking at the moves with the other guys.
Oh yeah.
Except Adrian.
Mine's probably a little bit more like upbeat. I'm playing some like synth wave and like new 80s style kind of music,
Oh yeah.
That's what I do to relax. And in the morning I had this one when I exercise, I play a lot of screamo. So I had this one, like to combat like the nerves going into the first round every day. I was playing this just like really aggressive like screamo song, and it just for whatever reason it really calms me down. Like it just like it like is more aggressive than the nerves that I'm feeling. So it just like overpowers that, and then I get like very zen in a weird way.
There you go, man.
That's
what you need.
Yeah.
Burger and heavy music.
Exactly.
All right. Well, guys, this is the Squad Games Podcast. That was a weird intro. I'm Giacomo. I'm with Dakotah, and we're with Adrian. Yeah.
Yeah. How's it going? Nice to be here again, guys. Really happy to be here.
Thanks for coming on.
Hell yeah. Anytime.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that happened in Nova, and for the next couple of weeks, we're going to be interviewing different people from Nova and talking about bits and pieces here and there. Adrian, you won. Congratulations.
I know.
You got first place.
I know. Honestly, it's genuinely, it's surreal. Like I'm still like very much on cloud 9 after the event. I'm running on like 3 hours of sleep. We got back like after yesterday. I mean, yeah, it's just yesterday. That seems crazy, but yesterday finished the event. Had an amazing award ceremony. Talked to everybody. Hopped in the car with 4 of the guys from Brooklyn. Drove all the way back, and by the time I got back to my house after the subway and the car and everything, it was like 1 a.m. And my wife was up waiting for me, and she made me, speaking of spice, she made me like a jalapeno infused margarita. We had some food, we had some drinks, we recapped the night's events, and I was up until like 4 a.m. just kind of like riding the high, decompressing. And then I got 3 hours of sleep this morning, got up at 7, and I was just like, let's go. And I was just like went out, got some coffee, went to a diner, got some breakfast, and I went to the local store, the Brooklyn Strategist, where I like get all my reps in and stuff, and met up with the guys, and went out for lunch and some more drinks. So I've been like, I'm probably on like my 3rd or 4th wind right now. But after this podcast, I'm probably going to crash super hard.
I'm right there with you. I think we drove back to Baltimore. We got some milkshakes. I've never had Old Bay fries before.
Interesting. It's just fries with the seasoning on it?
Yeah, I've never had that spice before, and they're all like, what? You've never had the spice before? I was like, yeah, I'm from California. And they're like, oh yeah, okay. But they were dope. They kind of remind me of like Laurie's seasoning salt, but like with a more smoky spice to it. Big fan, real big fan of it.
It's good stuff. I think it's good as long as you don't put too much on it, but yeah, it's really nice. It's good stuff.
Yeah. And then I went to bed around 1:30. I woke up at 4:30, caught the plane, slept a little bit in the plane, and took the second plane, and then I got here. So, exciting.
Yeah.
Good times.
I know. It was a really good time.
I got to sleep in my bed like a normal person.
Oh yeah. Nice. Must be nice.
So Adrian, did you read the packet before you went in at all?
I did. The tournament packet. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you? Now, what was interesting is I tied twice within the tournament. Mm-hmm. Did you ever tie?
I didn't. No. All the wins or the losses were pretty clear cut. So no, I didn't have to go to any tiebreakers, but I was aware going into it of what they were. And I tried my best to sort of be aware of them. But it didn't actually come up because I mean, like it's hard in the games. Like it's 2 hours. You're really like tunnel vision, and despite your best intentions, even if it comes to a tie, like you might forget exactly what the order is and all that stuff. But fortunately for me, it didn't come up, so I didn't have to like kind of position my guys to take advantage of what the tiebreakers were. I think the first one was it was like the maximum number of two VP secondaries you got, like maxed out secondaries,
and then it was how many operatives own each, who owns the most amount of objectives, and then it went to a third one, which was
how many people you've killed, right, on the other team or something like that.
And then it goes to defender.
Yeah, and then the defender just straight up wins. Yeah.
Well, that last part is interesting because, like, what if you're playing against elites? Do they say elites count for more dudes you killed?
Nope.
Really?
It's total APL shot. Yeah. I mean, it got a couple people. I mean. Personally, I like ties as a tournament organizer, but when you go to a tournament, you have to accept that. It's not your tournament, right? So it was fascinating, but I definitely wasn't playing. I never played for a tie.
Oh no, 100%. Yeah,
I tied twice and I lost both on tiebreakers. It was very fascinating.
Rough, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, it's not my first time doing it because I think they did tiebreakers at KTO as well. It didn't actually come up for me there either. But this tournament was very different from both that tiebreaker format and also the pod format, which I've done like this one in KTO, both separated into pods after day one, which I have mixed feelings about. Some are positive, some are on the fence. But most tournaments I've done that are like a 2-day GT or like total kind of aggregate performance.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your total feelings on it?
I don't know. I think, for one, it's a lot more stress day one. Like you cannot make a single mistake. You have to get good, like, cause you could have a bad matchup on day one into a really tough opponent. You could play the 2 biggest sharks in the whole tournament on day one. You could play 3 softballs on day one. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to say. So I think the one saving grace in this tournament for like the 4 games on day one was the fact that it was kind of SOS based, because if it wasn't, you could have really ran up the score and got lucky with your matchups, and people who maybe had potentially more talent but played tougher opponents would have had lesser score. So I'm kind of on the fence. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the tournament organizer's prerogative. This is what we paid for and signed up for and knew what we were going into. So I just always try and do my best to understand the full extent of the parameters, talk to the TO before the event, see what his thoughts are on it and what he's willing to accept within the parameters of the packet that they've presented, and just do your best within that. So on day one I went 3-0, and then Dakotah, you and I met, and you beat me, demo mine to the face. And then I was like, all right, well, now it's kind of out of my hands and it's SOS based. But I think thankfully, because you went 4-0 on day one, that elevated my OSOS enough. And I ended up finishing like first amongst the 3-1 people.
Yep.
And then that took me into the top 8 for the next day. And then it was like clean slate.
Yeah. What was fascinating is even with your points scores, you would have been in top 8 as well. Just
right.
Even if it wasn't strength of schedule, the amount, like, because what you scored 24, 23, 22, 15,
something like that. Yeah. So I almost maxed out every game except ours. So I think I maxed my secondaries almost every game again except ours. So yeah. So I was covering bases there, because again, I think also it's weird because some people have talked to me like, hey, well, like I have a strategy where like I try and score low the first round but win. So then I get paired into someone else who scores low, and I'm always of the mindset like, first of all, I don't even know how this stuff works. Like I know somebody talks to me about win path or SOS. I'm like, I don't know. That's the machine stuff. Like they'll figure that out. Like I just try and play as optimally as possible and do the best I can. And sometimes, you say you max out game one, it doesn't necessarily mean you play the best player in the tournament the next round, because they could have a tougher matchup and they could have won by a lesser margin. So I just do the best I can, get as many points as possible, because you never know when it's going to come up for a tiebreaker, or because I guess if you had the same SOS and then it goes down to probably primary or secondary points after that, right? I mean, I imagine. So,
it's weird because it's pretty much every TO does it different, right? Like, this one I was not aware that it was strength of schedule whatsoever, but I figured that I had to try and win every game to get top 8.
Exactly.
And I think that's what everyone's mindset is, to try and get there.
Right.
Yeah, and then I found out it was strength of schedule afterwards, and I was like, "Whoa, how does this even work?" Because I just don't do it, Because
right,
it's funny because Matt has been screwed over by tournament points in the tournament point system in the past, and I've been screwed over by strength of schedule in the past. So we just have completely different philosophies on the subject, which I find interesting and fascinating.
100%. And I think, I mean, in my mind, when you have a longer event, say you had a 2-day event. If you have 8 rounds total as a whole tournament and everybody's in the same overall pod, then I think the SOS has more time to really kick in, as opposed to just maybe day one. But again, I'm not an expert on it. So it's kind of, I don't want to speculate without knowing really like what goes into it. But yeah, I think people at the tournament had mixed feelings about it. Some people kind of got burned by the SOS and some people didn't. But at the end of the day, like it is what it is, like I said, and that's what it is. You got to just accept it and do your best to yeah.
SOS. It's easier to blame the tournament rather than it is to blame your own performance.
I think so. Yes.
So that's where I think some of the feels bads comes in. But besides that, there was what 528 games played at Nova, which is
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think LVO we hit 750, so that just shows you how big this was. Like this was enormous. Right?
It was very big. Yeah,
this event was enormous, and the last round was made it even harder. But like it was overall, like the space was amazing. The people there were amazing. I didn't have any issues with any person I played. Did you enjoy every game you played?
I think so. Yeah, I didn't have any bad experiences. I mean, a few matches, as expected, got a little sweaty, but at the end of the day, I think 3 of my matches were against fellow people from Brooklyn who I locally play with. So like, even though we got sweaty, we're friends and we know how we both operate. So that always is nice to be like, I understand how you're talking about intent and those kind of things. It just makes the game a little bit quicker. Mm-hmm. But every game was great. A little sweat here and there, but no major issues. And at the end of every game, everybody looked each other in the eyes, shook hands, and GG.
Yeah, sweat isn't inherently bad.
It's not, and I think it comes with the territory. When you're playing something and you're competitive and you want to win it, you obviously want to do it in the right way. You don't want to go about it in a sketchy or like overly aggressive or kind of cheating type way. But like there's gonna be some friction when in a game where like you're doing your best to have robotic measurements, but at the end of the day, we're all humans. So talking about intent, measuring things where it literally comes down to millimeters, being outside of a charge range or a move dash shoot range, for example. Mm-hmm. Somebody sees it one way, somebody sees it the other. Things get moved, so it definitely will come up, especially on day 2 when there's a lot more at stake.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And what else was crazy was, the terrain kept getting bumped around. I know I ran into that issue. Yeah. I don't know if you did, but like against my game against True, there was a vantage point in my deployment zone. I deployed on it and he was like, yo, you can't do that. And I was like, really? Yeah. So we got Matt, fix the situation. We were like, all right, well, shit, and it's kind of like, is there anything else wrong on the table? But at that point, it's without having published maps, we won't know. Did you run into any issues with that? Into the Dark, you don't have that problem, right?
Into the Dark, you don't. You just have to make sure the objective markers are placed, but that's easy because you have the layouts and you just reposition them a little bit if they're out of place. But no, Into the Dark, you don't. Mm-hmm. It happened a few times on Open, but it's kind of one of those things where like if I thought something was really wrong, I just grabbed him real quick and said, hey, because I think he had like either pictures or something on his phone he could refer to what the original placement was. Yeah. So we could quickly verify, oh yeah, this should be a little bit further back. This is a little bit out of place. The intent was always that there was always enough space between all pieces of terrain that a normal size base, I guess a 32 mil, should be able to fit through without traversing. It's tough. He was running it all by himself. So honestly, kudos to him for doing that because that's a huge event to run.
Absolutely. If there's anyone out there looking to help next year, make sure you reach out to Matt. Like I have a team of at least 3, right? That helps with local tournaments. And LVO this year, we have a lot more volunteers. I think we're going to have 7. Yeah. Right. So like that help really does help TOs, everyone. So if you guys are interested, maybe you don't want to play, maybe you would just want to help and be there, be in the scene, hit up Matt. I'm sure he would love the help. 100%.
Definitely. Yeah. But anytime we had an issue with the train, he would very quickly resolve it or confirm. And it was never major. It was only a few times, a few things a little bit out of place. That's really all. So I didn't nothing that really defined the game or changed the games we played.
Yeah, it was a fun time though. It was. Yeah. We got to play in the blue lit hall next to the we got to hear every single announcement from the 40K. It was very interesting, very fun.
It was cool. It felt like Kill Team finally was like almost on the main stage, right? Like we still haven't got GW to stream our events, which is, hey, that'd be cool. But we were right there and there was the energy, there was the atmosphere, it was a huge room. There was that massive 10-foot Terminator, which was so cool. Mm-hmm. And very cool, like kind of dim, like almost blacklight type lighting. It was very, very thematic.
Yeah. It was pretty loud and Matt was able to pull us into the back room and
for the announcements every day.
And do announcements so that we could all hear, which was cool. It was a very fun event. Thoroughly enjoyed it and look forward to going next year. Yeah. And if anyone else is out there looking to go, it's a great event. So hopefully they can continue to grow and they don't get maxed out at anything. But, I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah. I think it's up there with LVO. It's one of the big ones, right? It's like, because it's LVO, it's Nova, and what are the other really big ones every year, including like 40K and all the stuff? Like,
I think this year it was Kill Team Open. It was, I'm not sure.
KTO is interesting because it was just Kill Team, but I'm talking about like the big events where GW has a huge presence. There's X-Wing, there's Lord of the Rings, there's 40K, there's Sigmar, there's Heresy. It was really big.
Yeah. So I think it's Adepticon, Nova, LVO. Those are probably the biggest.
Those are the big three. Yeah.
Yeah, of all the events. There are like FLG runs all those events, but typically every one of their other events is smaller.
Right.
I know that ACO grew. I think BAO grew by like 2.5. I think LSO stayed about the same. We're still coming up on SoCal, so we're going to see how big SoCal grows this year. SoCal Open. It's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, every event has the possibility to keep growing as long as we just get, players to come.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, what was your so there was a lot of Kommandos. Do you think that?
Yeah, I know. It was even for me, it was too much.
I when we came in, I had no idea there would be this many Kommandos and this many Vet Guard. The Vet Guard thing was extremely surprising to me.
Yeah.
Even on our podcast, everyone, we talked about it and stuff. And I don't know where everyone thought to bring Vet Guard. Maybe they just all were I have no idea.
Man.
Yeah, I know it's so strange. I mean, I have a few ideas as to why that is, but yeah, the meta was basically, because I was looking at it, it was like Kommandos, Intercession, Legionary, and Vet Guard, and then 2 of random things scattered throughout, 2 Hearthkin Salvagers, 2 Hand of the Archon, 2 Corsairs.
Only one cult, right?
1 cult. That's it.
That's
one
so
One
surprising.
I know people, but I think there's a big effect. When people get I still think cults are one of the best teams in the game. They're not nearly as broken as they were, but I think there's a big it's more of a mental thing when they get a big nerf, and people just kind of drop them, and it's weird. It's kind of this weird phenomenon that happens, and a lot of the top players maybe drop them, and then everybody else follows suit, or people get in their own heads and just look at the stats and say, they're not good now, without even maybe play testing it more, and they just move on to something else. I don't know, but yeah, they've fallen off very hard. And Felgor now is almost who are they, right? They had their 10 seconds of fame.
Felgor, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't turn out to be the summer of Colt after all. We're still in summer, and
hot melee summer, as we were calling it.
Dude, hot Ork summer, dude.
It's a green summer, to say the least.
Yeah, it's a green summer.
Green tide, yeah. Oh my god, and all the people were taking Kommandos. I mean, killers, dude. We had both of the Garretts. We had Mike Cortez, who's a great player. We had Kenny Rolla Crit. I mean, a lot of. I know I'm blanking on a few people because I'm running on 3 hours of sleep, so I apologize if I've left anybody out. But there were everybody playing Kommandos was a serious contender, really, really strong people playing Kommandos. So not only were they playing a good faction, they were all really good players. So I was oh man, I'm not looking forward to playing the Commando mirror. But luckily, I actually, believe it or not, through 8 games, I dodged it entirely. Didn't have to play a single Commando the entire time.
That's amazing.
Just talk about win path and however else BCP calculates stuff. Yeah, I didn't have to. I prepped for it. Did a lot of prep back in Brooklyn. Had a bunch of people run me the mirror match, and I felt good about it. But I absolutely hate playing it. It's not fun. It's really mentally taxing. You run into each other and just bounce off each other. Nothing happens. And I found that often I was charging into fellow Kommandos players and just passing the original Felgor, because I was why would I fight? It's just going to let you hurt me on my activation, then you're going to activate and finish me off. It's really strange. And then the defender being double advantageous, not only for getting the first forward deploy, zoning people out, and getting to choose the side you want. It's just a really weird kind of.
Do you want to go over that more in depth? So that
sure.
Some people don't realize that the mirror can be brutal like that.
Oh, it's very mentally taxing, because Kommandos as a team in general, I think have a fairly low skill floor, so they have an easier access point to entry than some teams. However, they have a very, very high skill ceiling, and I've been playing them now, I think, I've been maining them since kind of April, I think, at this point. And I'm still learning things. And I've been playing nothing but Kommandos since April, over many tournaments in Jersey and New York, and many practice games. And there's still things I learn about, especially on open, just little differentiations in placement when you forward deploy, who to forward deploy, which equipment to use. And it genuinely varies differently every time. And people play them differently. And I think that, as strong as Kommandos are right now, I think they're still very balanced and very well designed and very fun and rewarding to play, which I love.
I agree.
But yeah, in terms of the mirror, I mean, Defender, obviously it depends so much on Into the Dark versus Open. If it's Open, you're going to get the forward deploy. So if you choose Defender, not only do you get your side, but you get to nominate your 1, 2, or 3 forward deploys in your first group, put them down first, and you effectively can zone out 12 inches from that model to be like, this is mine, and you cannot forward deploy here. So that
which is crazy,
yeah.
It's pretty, like if you set it up right, you can really just stop people from getting on those points. Because for instance, the last game I played against Can You Roll a Crit? We were playing and on Open, and he was like, hey, I'm really good on loot. Do you really want to do that? Because I could just forward deploy 3. And I was like, hell yeah, I want to play that. That sounds great. I want to see what Kommandos can do. Like, let's do it. And like, he forward deployed on one of the points instead of all 3, but he did forward deploy 2. But I could see how strong it could be. You know what I mean? Yeah. Especially with people like Intercession or other teams that just can't get the bodies out there fast enough.
Yeah, I think you definitely. I mean, I've seen a lot of people. If you're playing elites and you're playing versus Kommandos on loot, especially, you just have to accept that they're getting 4-2, and certain maps can prevent it. But most of the time, you just have to accept you're going to get a 4-2. You do not want to lose a single Marine on turn 1, otherwise you're going to have a bad day, and you need to set up for a very strong turn 2. And even if you go 4-2, in their favor for the first 2 turns, if you're playing conservative, getting good positioning, killing a few orcs while not losing Marines. Like, I've seen people come back and then score 4-2, 4-2, and then get better secondaries and win the game. So it's definitely not impossible. I just think people start to panic when they don't get a 3-3 first turn and they overextend and then they get punished, because the things Kommandos are very good at doing, which, I mean, my play style often is like, I'll forward deploy lesser operatives. And then, they're still very tough. The regular boys are still very tough. You could have an assault intercessor charge a regular boy and not kill him with just a scratch and parrying out and all that. But if you commit to killing one of my worst models, then I have the dynamite, then I have the squig, then I have the knob, then I have the rocket to punish that. So Kommandos can kind of like forward deploy, dangle bait, and then if somebody bites, especially an elite team, you can punish them very effectively if your positioning is correct and if your preloading of APL is efficient. I mean, that's what I've been doing often. I've seen people play them multiple different ways. I've seen people put a smoke grenade on a knob recently, which I'm like, I don't know if I would do that, but people do it. And if it works for them, it works for them. I mean, that's why I go back to saying, like, I think they're such a fun, unique, and interesting team, because it's not like they have one build that is the way to play them. Yeah. You can put a smoke grenade on your rocket launcher. You could put a climbing rope on your rocket launcher. You could put nothing on your rocket launcher. You could sneaky get him onto a vantage if you have the initiative, as opposed to forward deploying on a vantage, on engage. And then if you have the initiative, you sneaky get with the climbing rope, get you up on the vantage, and you shoot immediately and then fall back down. There are a lot of cool things you can do with the equipment. I know I've heard that a lot of people, I think it was in Spain, use a ton of smoke grenades to just screen themselves as they move up the board. Some people just love to run all choppas. I mean, it's cool. There's so many ways to accomplish victory.
So what's interesting, my question is, do you think that this tournament really was a meta all on its own, or do you think this is really forecasting the future of tournaments until we get another data slate? So do you think it's just going to be orcs, or do you think we're going to start to see some of those cults come back, or any of the other teams, or do you think it's just going to be orcs and Vetguard? I have some interesting stats after this, so go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I think it's definitely a meta of its own, because first of all, it's a big tournament. People are coming here to compete, see how they measure up, so they want to be bringing the best teams. And not only that, but like, out of a field of, I think there were 72 people registered, and starting at day 1, we had 61 people actually there playing. So like, out of the field of 61, I mean, I kid you not, when I was looking through that list, and I was like, I think like 15 of these people could legitimately go 8-0 and win this, which is honestly huge. It's not like, there's like 15 people who are good. I'm like, 15 people could actually like 8-0 the event, which is ridiculous. The concentration of talent here was crazy. And 8 of those people were on Kommandos. A few of those people were on Legionaries, Shane being one, who's an excellent player. and a bunch of people like yourself and True on Vet Guard. Like,
Hey,
you got,
I did not expect big things for myself. Okay, I
Hey,
did not.
why, I don't know. Why not? Why wouldn't you?
You undersell yourself. You're a great player.
You went 4-0 day one, and you beat me, man, right?
I did. I did. I will tell you this. I prayed so much to the Emperor that day. He was playing through me. Okay.
Yeah.
I was on another planet. Okay.
That demo mine. I had nightmares.
You needed the spice. You didn't have the spice.
You know what's exciting is I actually dreamt for the first night after that one night. After that game, for the very first time in like a year, I had dreams. Yeah. My dream was that I was in a car accident with me and my son, and we both died, and I got eaten by a shark. It was crazy.
I literally had horrible dreams both nights because of the stress.
It's probably what it was.
Yeah, it was very much. I think it was like maybe a metaphor for like losing games and losing the tournament. But I got attacked by animals in my dreams, and I was losing fights left and right. And I was like, "What is going on, man? This is so stressful."
So I have a couple stats. These might interest you both. I know that we've been talking about on our past podcasts about how we believe Legionary are favored over Intercession, and not everyone in the community agrees with us.
Yeah.
And there were 10 commando players.
Okay.
Ranging from first placed to 52nd. Okay. But I will say the 52nd was a little bit of an outlier. I believe 33rd or 34th. Was the other. So they went from first to 34th.
And like
something similar.
4 of them were like in the top pod, right, on day 2, right?
Yeah. There was 1, 2, 3, 4 in top pod, and then it was in the second pod, it was 1, 2, 3 as well, right?
Yeah.
And that's like that's 7 of the 10 players.
Yeah.
Top 2 pods on commandos. Okay, all of them are sharks. Okay, they're all really good. But moving to Vet Guard, there were 7 players ranging from 7th place to 55th. And that was interesting because like there was 2 Vet Guard players that got into the top pod, but they both ended in 7th and 8th. Which was interesting to see that they just weren't as good as the commandos. And I'm okay. Blooded were there too.
We had 1 blooded player, just Nick, right?
Yeah. Nick,
singular. Yeah.
Nick destroyed me on Into the Dark. It was good. Then our next one is, Intercession. The top placement for Intercession. Do you know, take a guess. Both of you take a guess. What do you think the top placement were for Intercession was?
It was ninth place, right? Or no? Didn't they win bracket 2? Oh,
24th place was the top Intercessor player.
Oh, right, because they're brackets of 8, so it was for the 4th bracket, right? Okay, I think Alex from Brooklyn, right? Did he won his pod with Intercession? I think
Daniel Valente, I believe.
Oh, okay, yeah, I don't know where Alex finished, but I thought he won his pod too. But okay, but further down for sure.
Yeah. So a lot further down. And I think that's specifically because so many Vet Guard players came out, because Vet Guard is
it's a nightmare. I remember last season when I was playing Intercession, like playing Vet Guard, playing Breachers, playing anybody with Meltas and Plasmas and stuff. It's terrifying. I just live in constant fear every move.
Absolutely.
And then the last one is Legionaries. There were 5 and there was 9 Intercession, and the top Intercession was 24th.
Yeah.
So for Legionary, there were 5. The top was 2nd, and the bottom was 44th. But if you take away the 46th, but if you take away that one, the bottom was 32nd.
Yeah, so they were a little bit higher up overall.
Overall, I think that in between the top Intercession player and the second to bottom Legionary player, there was just, I think, 1. Just 1 Intercession placed above the Legionary player, 31st Joseph Gallo. So, it was pretty interesting, I think. You know?
Yeah, I think that also. I mean, I don't know who actually played who, but Legionary also is very good into intercession.
Agreed.
I think Legionary overall, especially the Nurgle build, which is just kind of consistent and it puts in the work, is probably still overall better than intercession. They have better melee, they have better shooting, and now that durable has been a bit nerfed, I mean, Nurgle is almost just as good as having a Primaris Marine. So I think, and they have more options, they have more specialists. You can do a lot more AP, better combat, more reliable combat, higher damage, rending, 5 feel no pains, plasma pistol hitting on a 2-up, which is ridiculous, like very scary, a 4 APL leader potentially. So yeah, no, I think Nurgle Legionaries is definitely better than Intercession, like in a vacuum overall. Yeah. I would say. I mean, that's not always the case against certain matchups, but in this tournament, I think with the meta, like we talked about before, I think this was kind of an isolated meta, very exaggerated, because I think a lot of these people took the teams. By this point, everybody knew Kommandos were one of the top teams. Everybody wanted to counter that in some way. So Nurgle Legionary, Intercession is probably the second worst matchup for Kommandos after Nurgle Legionary. Vet Guard's not horrible into them. I mean, they came in the same box and they were balanced around each other. And Vet Guard has just kind of dodged nerfs from day one, and they've always been a very strong team, and they have all the tools to do anything you want. You can add an inch to anything. You can roll a 1 on anything, you re-roll a 1 on anything. Like they have so many operatives and so many creative ways to pair them that a good player can find a way to win any game with Vet Guard. Like they're very, very strong.
I definitely agree.
Yeah.
I would say that if Vet Guard had to get a nerf, I would definitely say that the first thing that should be happening is the demo mine should not be able to blow up through walls.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah.
plain and simple. Like around walls, sure. Through walls, absolutely not. That's how I caught 3 intercession in one of my games.
Because it's a plasma hitting on 2s with AP1, right? It's 5-6 AP1, 4 hitting on 2s. That's like you just don't miss, and you have a few CP. So the one you miss, you re-roll it. So you're always getting 4 hits.
Yeah, it's right.
You're killing most things. And then if you set it up correctly with the extra APL or the GA2, like you did to me with the Confidant, I believe it was, like it's, even if you see it coming, you almost like on Into the Dark, especially, you just can't avoid it. It's like you're going to get hit with the truck. You just have to hopefully get hit with the truck on your own terms.
I think on Into the Dark, it is one of the harder moves to pull off. It took me a long time. It took me all of KTO, and I still couldn't master it. Right.
Right.
It's definitely an order of operations move.
Right.
And there are a lot of teams that it's a very skillfully hard thing to do. And it's a very interesting tactic, but not a lot of people can actually pull it off. It's very funny when me and Trude played. We picked almost the exact same equipment. We picked almost the exact same operatives. We almost put everything almost on the same people. I think our rosary was the only thing that changed. I put mine on the demo. He put his on his leader. And because of those, both of them lived for specific reasons. And it was very fascinating. So
you guys played on open?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And we tied.
Tiebreakers, yeah.
It came down to tiebreakers. It was very funny. A very skilled Vet Guard player as well.
Yeah.
So like, I know that you dodged your mirror. What did you do specifically to train for the mirror for our listeners out there?
Yeah, well, I played a couple of the really good Commando players here. At the Brooklyn Strategists and the Carcosa Club that we have around here, Chapin and Rami specifically. Rami, sorry. And we just tried things and talked it out. I was like, it was a game where we pretty much talked the whole time, because I only was able to get in like 2-3 reps into Commandos. So I was like, I just want to max this out. What do you think about here? One of us tried taking one archetype and the other one tried the other. So we would kind of have intel on how both felt. One of us tried forward deploying these types of operatives. One of us tried forward deploying the other. So we kind of like did the opposite things to get the most intel. So the way I prep best is I just run the games. I mean, I can look at rules and look at data sheets every day, all day, but nothing really sticks for me until it happens to me in a game. And then I remember, like, I could look at your data sheet for Vet Guard, for example, about the demo mine and understand how bad it could be. But until it happens to me, I'm not going to really know, like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know until you get hit with it. So to see the Commandos mirror play out, I realized that I found myself often like it's literally like it's a lot more like actual chess. It's like, can I trade, like, did I trade my rook for your pawn, or did I trade my rook for your bishop? And do I need my bishop more than you need your rook in this case? If you forward deployed your rocket boy and your sniper to be aggressive with shooting, can I counter that by forward deploying someone just outside of your 6-inch range and then sneaky getting 3 to get within 3 of you, and then charging and passing into your gunner to just nullify that threat, right? So it's a lot of charging and passing and tying up models, and who's the first one to reveal themselves and flip the order to engage and shoot the rocket, and whose dice are better. Like, if your rocket is better than my rocket and you're killing a guy and I'm not, then you're getting a pawn for free, right? So it definitely comes down to dice. It definitely comes down to who you forward deploy, how you counter forward deploy. Are you aggressive, or are you conservative and backloading your aggressiveness to turn 3 or turn 4? So I honestly can't say that I've played the mirror enough to tell you that I have any confirmed facts that I believe to be true. But I do know that there is a lot of like charging, passing, using this operative to tie up this operative, using this operative to counter the operative, or giving one of your guys combat support. So you have 4 attacks sitting on 3s and I have 4 attacks sitting on 2s. Like, how do you get that little bit of an edge, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And also a big, like, who's the first one to use just to scratch, and how does that affect the rest of the turn?
Yeah. Because then that's one thing that I always try to bait out too, is just to scratch, because like it happened in our game. You use just to scratch on your Dakotah boy. Yeah. And then I was able to use the demo to get that crucial kill on your knob.
Right. Yeah. The knob and the other boy. And that was probably, looking back, a mistake on my part. But I at the time, I didn't see your GA2 thing coming. I thought I had an extra activation. Yeah. And then it bit me hard. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very interesting. Commandos are very fascinating for many, many reasons. What did you find? What did you find that you used by far the most, and what was the most useful strategy that helped you win this tournament?
Like strategy or like strat ploy? You mean overall?
Either one.
Yeah. Well, obviously the forward deploy and open is invaluable. I used to be firmly in the 2 forward deploy camp, but lately I've come around to seeing the value of a 3 forward deploy. If you know the terrain can give you enough safety that you don't have to burn just to scratch turn 1, because you really ideally want to go into turn 2 with 2 CP, so you can Dakotah if you need to. Because some games you literally burn all your CP turn 1 on 3 forward deploys and a shush, for example, or 3 forward deploys and a just a scratch, and then the rest of the game you just have 1 active every turn for just a scratch, and that's all you ever do. Yeah. But so the forward deploys are amazing. Dakotah is good, but it's not like game winning necessarily. Just to scratch, like the mind games of just to scratch are incredible for your opponent. And the longer it's around, you can just see on their faces, and then the questions they ask you, like, you haven't used just a scratch yet? Yeah. Okay. So, like, every time they ask you that, you're like, okay, they're terrified right now. Yeah. Yeah. Because it changes the math so severely. Like, somebody can charge in with a 5/7 weapon. You're like, that's 7 damage. No, didn't happen. Yeah. So commandos are more like 14 to 17 wounds per model, when you have that active.
Absolutely. On any particular model, which is really cool. That's one of my favorite things about, like, I think just a scratch really makes this team what the team is. Like, like it adds that extra orky toughness that is really, fascinating.
And it's super flavorful. I love the idea of an orc just getting like shot through his like chest, and he's like, oh, it's just a flesh wound. Let's go. Like he's like this whatever. I'll be home in time for dinner. Like, let's do this. I just love the idea that like an orc gets his hand blown off. He's like, it's nothing I haven't seen before. So no, it's very thematic while also being a very powerful like competitive tool. But yeah, overall, in terms of overall strategy, like. Again, like it's hard to say, because every game, like some people, they show up, they're like, all right, I got my groups, I got my equipment, I know how I'm deploying. Every game, I would analyze the terrain and the mission and my opponent and what their equipment was and where the lines were and where the forward deploy spots were, and my groups and my equipment and my deployment and my movement would change every game. Not drastically, like I'm not playing a completely different game, but enough that it took a lot of thought, and my deployment was definitely, where I took a bit more of my time in the game to make sure I got that right. But as I mentioned before, like overall strategy, if it's something like loot, I'll probably just put a few disposable boys on points and know that I can loot quick and either chill there or run away. And then if I lose them, I'm not too worried about it. If it's capture, you don't have that pressure right away to do that. So you can maybe forward deploy some guns to cover some points, especially if you out activate people like elites. If you get a gunner in a good position on conceal with an order flip, or even a sniper can do some good damage to elites if you roll well. You just wait, and all you have to do is wait 6 times, and then you have like 5 more models left to go, and you got like 2 dynamites, a rocket, a sniper. So just like the activation game and the mind games that plays with your opponent is really critical as well, making sure you really hold off on that. And then just measuring extremely precisely and making sure your threats are lined up for next turn with the requisite APL and the bomb squig. Maybe he's outside of charge range and somebody has measured that. And then the last activation, you give him an extra APL. So then all of a sudden his threat range goes up to 11 with a move dash and a blow up. So just that extra inch. So there's a lot of precise measurements and where do you want to place these guys and stuff. Like the longer I play the game, the more I've been, you think about like denying your opponent's tack up. So if I know someone is operating under seek and destroy, like elites will be, or blooded will be, for example, maybe I don't need to start this boy forward deployed on this point, even if I plan on looting it or capturing it, because it gives them the option to eliminate that guard. Mm-hmm. So I deploy him a millimeter from it, and then I just move him on and cap it. And then they can't have that as eliminate guard target because he didn't start the turn on it. So little adjustments like that, for example, go a long way in a close match.
That makes sense. Yeah, I know. Eliminate guard is maxed against vet guard every time. So if anyone's playing vet guard, always take eliminate guard because they're
too many bodies. Yeah,
too many bodies, too easy to kill. I found myself fighting all 7 games against seek and destroy. I would find it interesting if GW could start to follow how many times players take certain tac ops,
right?
Because I find seek and destroy pretty much. I could guarantee almost everyone was taking eliminate guards, rob and ransack and route. Almost every time.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Against vet guard, for sure. Against elites, route's probably not a great choice because you can't guarantee that kill, and then you're just hung out to dry, giving them an easy.
You could take shock.
Right? I would probably do headhunter in that.
Headhunter is a nice one that's kind of a little bit more mindless, so you're probably getting 1 on it, and if you're lucky, you get 2. I think shock tactics is tough because again, to guarantee a marine kill turn 1, not easy, and a good player won't want to feed that to you, and even if they do, there's no guarantee that a rocket with full rerolls will kill a marine. You might whiff, and then all of a sudden you've locked yourself out of 1 point.
It's true.
And then, as I mentioned before, turn 2 is the turn where if they've positioned correctly, then it's very hard to hold 4 points. Maybe that's a 3-3 turn. So I don't love shock tactics. If it's against a lesser team, like not a lesser team, but a team with lesser operatives, like a 7 wound 5-up save model, I can guarantee I'm going to kill someone, and I can probably threaten enough to hold 4 on the second turn. So that's a possibility, and especially if it's something like capture too, because the weird thing with the wording on these new tac ops is that even if you have a point secured, in order for shock tactics to count, you still have to have a model on it because it's secured and not captured. So it's really strange. Like capture, you could be off it, but if it's secure, you still have to have models on those back points. So it's not great on that mission. But I found myself into all my matchups, pretty much taking route, rob and ransack, and eliminate guards, and then into elites. In my play testing, I had started off thinking infiltration was the way to go, and then after a lot of play testing, I found that I was like, you know what, these fights are already hard enough to win that I don't think I can be not hitting them at all. Like, so all of a sudden, you're already getting destroyed in combat. You may only get 2 hits, which an intercessor may automatically double parry, or a legionary may parry 1, and then you're just implanting with your second one, and then you're just dying and doing no damage. So they're really taking nothing in return and just killing an orc for free. And then you have to do that 2 more times on 2 other guys. And then it also, what it does is it ties the Grot up having to accomplish 4 secondary points on his own, for like gather surveillance or subversive control late game, or like, I forget what it's called, control, the opponent's barricade. And whereas if you run seek and destroy against the elites, it's a lot harder to actually score the tac ops because they're still tough. However, the Grot is then free on capture and secure to threaten those 2 or 3 back points as soon as they move up. And if they're leaving an operative back there and not doing anything, that's already a win for you anyway. And the Grot can usually find a way around it. So I actually found myself pivoting very close to Nova into seek and destroy in every matchup, no matter what, and just adjusting my play style around that and strategy, and changing the tac ops a little bit. Like route, I would not take against elites, and I might take Headhunter instead.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Especially in this tournament where secondaries are so important just because of ties.
Right.
Security is rough. I found when True played me, I was like, oh, I should have taken protect assets too. That would have been a good idea. But these things we all learn from, and I think that you came in very well prepared. Is there any who do you like to put your dynamite on?
It depends. If it's Into the Dark, I almost never bring the Breacher unless there's like a really long hallway that I know someone's going to put a barricade in. Mm-hmm. But on Into the Dark, I usually just put it on a regular boy. On Open, if there are no obvious walls that I need to run through and I can go around a wall or run through a door, I'll put it on a boy as well, because I just like the reliability of a Choppa a lot better than the Ram because it can be so swingy. Mm-hmm. But most often on Open, I'll put it on my Breacher. There were some games where I used to put it on the Knob, but it's just like he's so good in combat anyway that it's fairly telegraphed anyway. People, it's not like the beginning of season 1 anymore. Like people know it's coming.
Yeah.
So the only benefit that the Knob gives you is that if you win the initiative, it's happening immediately and they don't have any time to react.
Yeah.
But I've just found him so valuable, not only to give out APL for the first 2 turning points, which matters a lot on, capture or secure or loot. If you can run onto a thing that a guard's been standing on with 3 APL and then loot it right away and then kill them, that is a big win. So it's either the Knob or the Breacher or a boy. One of our guys from Brooklyn actually put it on the comms one time, which I've never thought of. And I think it's a bit of a risk because you like him for other stuff, but in Into the Dark specifically, he ran him up against a door with the dynamite, and then the next turn opened the door for free and immediately threw the dynamite. So like it's just all these cool ways you can use commandos depending on the specific situation and how you like to play them and who your opponent is and how you think they might play to counter that.
Absolutely, yeah, that's fascinating. I know there's I'll definitely say that when you put the dynamite on the Knob, it's if it goes off and you get first turning point and you kill multiple models, you're more than likely to win. But the other 50% of the time that you don't win initiative.
And the thing is, too, the dynamite, like people live in fear of it. And I feel like this is a similar way about how Corsairs have been described sometimes, where it's like you have to respect all their threats, but the fear of these threats is sometimes worse than what they actually are. So as long as you're not giving anybody 2 or 3 models at a time, if you only give them one target, like you're going to get hit with the dynamite. So do it on your own terms and let them roll. Because the amount of times that I've rolled like 1 or 2 hits and they've saved, they've made 2, 3 up saves and nothing has happened, or they've taken 4 damage and all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, that wasn't that bad. Mm-hmm. The dynamite is honestly more of an area denial tool than anything else because sometimes it goes off and it doesn't even do anything.
Yeah. When I was playing Can You Roll a Crit?
Yeah.
His Breacher Boy went through a wall and threw it, but I spaced out. And so he threw it, he hit once.
Right.
And I saved. And I was like, oh, the exact same reaction.
Yeah.
I was like, the Emperor protects.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So that's it. I mean, you just have to build it into your calculations. You're going to get hit with it if they want to hit you with it. Just make sure you're only hitting one model. Or if it's like a guard team, you can afford to lose maybe 2 guys, depending, or get hit with 2 guys, but no more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely keep that in your mind, guys. It's not play through it. Know it's going to happen. You can't always deny it. If you can deny it, feel free to get that charge and deny them.
Yeah. But the nice thing about commandos, though, because with the forward deploys, with the threat of the dynamite, it allows them then to have such good board presence. Because if you don't respect it, they're going to punish you. And if you do respect it, you only have 1 model there. And then they're like, all right, well, now I just got 2 APL bodies on the point, and so I own this point now. It's kind of like a catch-22 in a way. So it's not as simple as just like, oh, like it's going to be fine. You're not going to die, but it's a weird. I mean, they're a tough team to play against. I think they're a tough team to play against.
Yeah, I mean, the team is so fascinating. I mean, you could put, if you wanted to be more like aggressive, you don't even, when you forward deploy, you could put like a Dakotah, the Rocket Boy, and a Sniper all up on different vantages so that the enemy just can't move.
You could. The only thing is, though, only 2 of those people are going to potentially shoot that turn. But I like to give the Dakotah Boy a chopper anyway. So if you did that, you could charge him into someone's back lines, kill someone, and then turn 2, start out guns a-blazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, but even that is so interesting too, because most people assume when you forward deploy the Rocket Boy, you're going to choose the order flip. And if you depending on who's the attacker, who's the defender, and what you think they're going to do in response, you can surprise them and pick one for a barricade, steal the initiative, and then just charge your knob into someone's back lines first and say, "I'll shoot you with the rocket next turn."
Yeah.
So it's really just and that's why I love them. Like I haven't gotten bored of them, like I kind of did with Intercession. Like there's so many ways to play them. There's so much that I feel like I still can learn, like all these incremental improvements and little things that just become second nature and just tiny little micro adjustments to your game. It's really, really, they're very rewarding. I'd say they're very rewarding to play.
So the 2 models I actually fear most on this team is the Dakotah Boy and the Bomb Squig.
As Vet Guard or just in general?
As Vet Guard and as myself in general.
Yeah. Well, my Dakotah Boy didn't do anything to your Meltagun.
Nope.
With full real. Yeah. So
he's Rambo. I mean, what do you expect?
That's true. That's true.
I would say that the reason why the Dakotah Boy is terrifying to me is Emmanuel out here plays the Dakotah Boy very differently. On open, he's really good, right?
Yeah.
Like if you have the right terrain, you can give him a rope and then he can pop up, hang his base over, shoot, and dash back down. And he's just always safe.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's impossible to kill him. And like, it's just like a free shot from a vantage every turn if you have the right terrain.
Right. He becomes like a 3 APL Marine, just pop up, shoot, dash down. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So he can be really frustrating to play against, in my opinion. And then the Bomb Squig is essentially a one shot similar to the Demo Mine. Bigger blast, or just about the same blast radius, just a tad bit bigger. But it can also mess you up in close combat, as we saw.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I knew I was going to lose the game to you, I've tried desperate tactics I'd never tried. I had the Bomb Squig charge in and pass. The next activation, next turn, he actually tried to bite a guy. So I was like, the only way I can claw my way back is if this Bomb Squig kills this guardsman with his jaws and then charges into 2 other models and passes, so they can't do anything. Yeah, and I almost got it. I rolled the 2 crits.
And I think I rolled a crit.
You rolled a crit and a hit. So if you had just rolled 2 normal hits, I would have had it. But yeah, no, that was a big play. But yeah, at the end of the day, I ended up just blowing up traditionally as you do.
Yeah, Steven Seagal, I guess he's good at handling crazy squig orc things.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's all the practice he's gotten from fighting with the Russians.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you find yourself? G, do you have any questions before I do more?
No, we can move on.
Okay. Did you find yourself with any other operatives that did something that really surprised you? Like that you just didn't expect and you were just like, this is going to be a great move this game.
On the Kommandos team?
Yeah.
I don't think none of the operatives really surprise me anymore because I know the best that they're capable of and I know the worst they're capable of. I mean, which is basically murdering a Space Marine. Like the best thing you can do with a Rocket Boy is get like 3 crits and 2 hits and they're just dead, and then it's just, that's a Marine completely gone. And the worst thing you can do is whiff everything with the Bomb Squig or the Dakotah Boy and you're just out there with your pants around your ankles getting shot up. But no, I don't think any of my operatives necessarily surprised me this tournament. I'm trying to think of any like really cool plays. I mean, the coolest things I've done in the past were really against the boogeymen of the meta or the old boogeymen, which were, cults primarily.
Yeah.
And having a triple forward deploy against some people who weren't expecting it. And, having the sniper shoot someone dead, having the slasher boy come in and kill someone and having the knob come in and kill someone. And then someone else kills someone at the end of the phase, and all of a sudden, by the end of the turn, they've lost like 4 or 5 models. Like that surprised me the first time I did it. But no, to be honest, right now, I kind of know like what the operatives are capable of. So other than like crazy dice rolls, like in my final game against Shane, he had his plasma gunner with a combat knife, which is like 5 attacks sitting on 3s, 3/5. Fight one of my boys with the choppa. And I think I rolled like 2 crits or 3 crits in 1 hit, and he got like maybe only 2 or 3 hits with CP rerolls, and he didn't have any crits. So the way it happened is like he hit me with a normal, and then I hit him with he parried one of my normals, and then I hit him with a normal. So I only had 2 crits left, which he couldn't parry, and I actually just murdered that Legionary Space Marine with a regular boy.
Wow.
Which I was not expecting, and that was just kind of, dice be dice at that point.
Absolutely.
But like that was probably the biggest surprise of the whole tournament, when I was like, this boy is for sure dead, and then all of a sudden he just murders a Space Marine that's been around for thousands of years. Just a scratch.
Yeah, you gotta love that, just a scratch.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even have to use it. That's the crazy thing.
Did you
Really?
enjoy?
Yeah, not in that particular activation. Yeah.
Did you enjoy any games in particular throughout the tournament?
Yeah. I think I enjoyed them all. It was always fun. Like round 2 and round 3, I played Joey Cruz and then Nestor, who are good friends of mine, and we play all the time at the locals. So it's always fun to be like, yeah, we traveled all the way to this other place just to play a local monthly. But those were always fun games. And we've played each other so many times in the same matchup. We kind of like, all right, we kind of know how this goes. And then our game was actually really fun. I enjoyed it because we met at LVO, didn't get to play. We didn't play each other at KTO. So I really, really enjoyed our match a lot. And it was great to finally get to play you on the tabletop, because we've talked a lot. We've done the podcast before. So that was really fun. And then day 2, all the games are great. I mean, playing True again from Brooklyn, only the second time we've ever played, believe it or not. But same matchup has always been Vetguard versus Kommandos. Playing Nick Craven after that with his Blooded. He's such a gentleman and always a pleasure to play. Like the nicest guy. And everything is really solid. And congrats to him for winning the silver ticket of this event. So he'll be there at the World Finals in Atlanta as well, which is awesome.
Hell yeah.
I know he's been trying really, really hard for that, and he deserves it. And then the final, it's got to go to the finals match, right? Against Shane. Like,
absolutely.
Shane and I had only played once prior, and he beat me at the Salt City GT, where I ended up getting my initial silver ticket. And I feel like I probably got a little diced that game, but I think it would have been a tight game otherwise on open. But he definitely had that game over me there. So I was like, all right, this is cool. It's fitting that we see each other in the final here. And as stressful as it was, I actually did really enjoy the final format, because for those who aren't aware, it was 2 games back to back, an hour and a half each, including setup time. So not 4 hours, but 3 hours total for 2 games. One was Into the Dark, one was open. So that was great, because I think on Into the Dark, Legionary very, very, has pretty good advantage, and on open, Kommandos have maybe a slight advantage depending on the mission, or at least more of a level playing field. So it was good to give 2 chances to come back from that. And the veto system was really interesting. I don't know if this is a thing that other tournaments do, but Matt, the TO, basically had both of us roll off. Whoever got the highest number vetoed one of the missions, like loot, capture, or secure. So every time Shane won both times, and he vetoed loot immediately. Not surprising. And then I said, okay, well, I'm going to veto secure. So we played capture both times, which was, fine by me. Obviously loot's better, but what are you going to do? And, but that was really cool. So it made sure that it wasn't just one game with, crazy dice or a crazy mission or a crazy map, for example. And it was the aggregate of the 2 games. So, I can talk about that match in far more detail whenever you guys want. But that, I think, to go back to your original question, really enjoyed our game, Dakotah. Everybody was an amazing opponent, but obviously it was just so cool to be in the finals event at this event, or final match at this event. I knew I had a shot at winning it, but I didn't really expect, it kind of snuck up on me, the fact that I was actually there.
Yeah. So I'll touch on both of those, and we'll go into Shane.
Yeah.
Your final matchup, probably the most important one of the entire tournament.
Definitely.
Yeah. So our game, I definitely was probably the most stressed.
Yeah. Why is that?
Because I know how good you are, and I really wanted to get top 8 because I never have.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, Kommandos are really good right now. Let's see what happens. And I think I played that game really, really strategically well.
I think so. Yeah, I don't think you put a single foot wrong the whole game. I mean,
yeah. And I think it was really mentally taxing, but I really enjoyed how hard I had to work my brain and how hard you made it.
Yeah.
And it was very, very, very good. It was a really good game. It was probably the hardest Commandos game I've played. I did lose to John Reese at the second day, but it was definitely it was fun. It was so much fun. The final format for me was rough. I would have way rather have had 3 hours and one game.
Interesting. Okay.
Because like after 6 games to then like blitz 2 games in a row.
Yeah.
With 2 high activation count armies was really difficult.
Right. No, it was difficult for me too. It was not a walk in the park at all because even in a 2-hour game, sometimes I use the whole clock. So I really had to move fast, and I think I probably made a few mistakes because of it, especially in the first match. But it is what it is, and you're always doing the best you can be. And it was tight, but the reason I really like it is because like it was a mixed format tournament. So like some teams are just better into the dark, and some teams are just better on open. So it's nice that I think you were able to sample both. So you couldn't really. You couldn't really blame it on having Into the Dark or open or playing a mission that you didn't like because you were able to at least veto one of them. One
thing I think I would have liked to see is I would hope that we could do this in the future for Nova, if Matt ever listens to this. Turn it into a 3-day tournament, and then that third day have another cut where first and second place play the best of 3.
Okay.
And then third and fourth can do the same, and then everyone else just plays in a random tournament.
That's interesting.
Because I think that would just be like a better aggregate because no one's like as stressed, people aren't as tired. I think it would just be a little bit easier and better. But a lot of places can't accomplish what LVO has 3 days, right? I would love for it to be 4 days because I really want to do like a really fun invitational team tournament where we could invite like the Pacific Northwest, we could invite like SoCal, New York, and Florida, the Midwest, and have all these teams come out and actually just like play like a legit like team tournament to see like what team is the best, like in person rather than TTS.
Right.
But like just more days is always better, and we have to do what we can on that day. Let's move to that last game and tell me how that went, because it was a nail biter.
It was. Well, I guess the first one, you mean the 2 in the finals? Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So basically the first one we rolled a D6 and we rolled Into the Dark. So we started there. We had capture and what's the mission? It was number 1. It was conduit so it was the one where you have like the 4 separate rooms. They're kind of boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 2 objectives on either side, right in the middle, with like a doorway in the center. So I think all in all, like not a bad mission for me to have as Commandos, because you just shush and then immediately every operative is right up to the door of each of those rooms.
Yes.
And since it was capture, I could just outweight him. I decided to leave a bunch of guys unengaged. So all my big threats for shooting were unengaged. So I just waited and I was like, if you walk in this room, somebody's getting shot. So literally it was strange. I started off really strong and I actually held him to a single point the first turn. I captured 5 points.
Wow.
I captured the 4 in the middle and the 1 on my side, and rightfully so, because if he went in there, like I said, you don't want to lose a Marine turn 1.
Yeah.
However, with time being a thing, you never want to give the Legionaries a 2-for-1, and I made a few mistakes and I left like my knob and my comms at a door. And I ended up making a few questionable decisions, which allowed, his demon to just kind of kill some guy, charge another guy, kill that guy. And then it really put me on the back foot. So starting turn 2, I think then we went to like a 3-3 turn. And then it turned into like maybe a 4-2. And then like I don't know what it was, but he really fought his way back, and he just moved his guys up the board and just obliterated everything in his path.
Wow.
And ended up winning the game, I think it was like 15-13. I think he went up by like 2 points. Mm-hmm. And I went for a really ballsy move at the end. So at the end, I had 2 guys tied up in combat with his Shrive Talon. I had my Slasher Boy at full health, and I had a 1 wound boy just there providing combat support, which was his I think it was his eliminate guards target that I had managed to keep alive. And I was like, with my 1 last CP, if I crump him and I kill this Shrive Talon, not only do I get 2 points on Robin Ransack, I also get back this point. So it would have been like a 3 or 4 point swing, because I would have taken the point away from him. I would have got a point, and I would have had 2 points in the secondary. And I think it might have turned it into a victory for me. But I forgot, for whatever reason, just like I forgot about your demo mine, that Shrive Talon always fights first. So I was like, full rerolls, hitting on 2s. I'm going to get 3 hits. He's dead. He had I think like 8 wounds left. So I was like, or 7 wounds left. I need like a crit and a hit, and he's done. And I forgot that he fought first, and Shane rolled like 2 to 3 crits. And I was like, I'm actually just dead. So I lost the point, gave it to him, and it didn't really change anything for him other than the fact that he won by 1 more point. But I went for a big swing and a miss. So I was like not feeling great going into game 2, because now I was like, all right, now I need to win this game by at least 3 points to have the total aggregate, different. But I kept it like reasonable. So like I didn't get like blown out of the water and open. So into the dark. So I was feeling good going into the open match. And then on open, the mission was center number 2. So it's like the box, everything's equidistant, right? There's 2 objectives on the center line, 4 from each side, and then a box right around the center. So he won the roll off. And weirdly enough, like this was actually the only game where I didn't win like the pregame roll off. So he was able to choose, and he chose to be attacker. Which I think he later realized was a little bit of a mistake, because my side was slightly more advantageous for my sneaky gets and positioning. Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right, I'm happy to take this side. And I went really aggressive. I forward deployed a rocket boy on a vantage. I forward deployed a sniper on a vantage. And then I forward deployed a regular boy over to the right to just kind of like, threaten this point. But like we talked about earlier, staying off it so he couldn't get eliminate guards first turn. Yeah. And I just proceeded to post up, flex with all my big guns, and have a ton of really safe orcs, all tightly concealed, all grouped up, ready to pounce turn 2. And I just was able to control the board so well. I think it was like a 4-2 first turn. And I was able to get the rocket off on his demon. My last activation, which took him down to like maybe 8 wounds or so. And luckily, I won the initiative turn 2. And I immediately fired the rocket again into the demon, which killed him, which was huge. And then I immediately dropped a smoke grenade, and he was safe for the rest of the game after that.
Nice.
So that was a huge turning point. And then, like we mentioned before, he had 2 instances where his dice just really weren't there for him. In the first match, there were a few times where he rolled like literally 4 or 5 crits, and I was like, what are you going to do? My orcs are dead. Mm-hmm. This game, however, like his plasma gunner, that scenario, like we talked about earlier with the boy, you're just counting on things to happen with Space Marines. You need them to happen. So you need to stab this orc to death, and then you need 2 APL to do something else. And when you don't stab the orc to death, then you're tied in combat. And not only that, if you just try and stab the orc and he kills you, that's just super bad. And then it's also my activation. So like I killed his plasma gunner on his own activation, and then I popped Robin Ransack and just ran away for the rest of the game. That was like turn 2. And then his Balefire later charged into my Slasher Boy. And I think it was a multi-charge who had combat support. But again, just literally bounced off of him. And my Slasher Boy just rolled enough crits to just slice him down. And then at that point, having lost like 3 models, it just was like one of those things where in order to win, I think he had to really like stretch to try for big plays. And when those big plays then didn't work, it just kind of snowballed out of control at that point. And I just was able to control the primary and max my secondaries, and that was that. So the open was really the big one for me, and it was, I think at the end of the day, it was a very convincing win for Kommandos on open, and I think that was partially due to the fact of the 444 deploy, the terrain. Octarius is great for Kommandos; they love it. All the vantages, all the doors, all the obscuring, all the heavy cover. And also I think like I do think I played that really well. I think I played like one of my better games in terms of positioning, what equipment I give people, the smoke grenade on the rocket, where I forward deployed them, when I move my operatives, accepting that I was not going to get a 2-for-1. So just throwing the bomb squig into one guy, knowing I might only do 4 damage just to chip him down for melee next turn. So like, I think those were the key takeaways for me. But I mean, Shane's a really, really good player. And I was, I was definitely sweating the whole time. It was not easy. Yeah, I mean, he's really strong, and it is like probably the worst matchup for Commandos on paper, the Nurgle Legionaries.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like you said earlier in the podcast, like you look at the list and you can be like, wow, there's like 8 people here or more who could go 8-0. Just name power alone. Right? And you're like, wow, okay, so Jimmy Kelly came from San Diego. Wow, okay, who else came? Adrian Bonaventure. Oh, wow, oh, Shane. Oh my goodness. And you have Ryan. Oh my gosh, like you have all these crazy like star power names, and it was super cool to see you both in the final. And
it was fitting. It felt really good. It felt really good. Yeah, the battle of upstate and downstate New York.
Absolutely. This region won this time. We'll see what happens next time.
Exactly.
I also love how we don't have repeats, right? Like back in the old edition of Kill Team, you always had like Michael T. Holy coming out and winning these big events back to back to back to back. And then Emmanuel like won, and then Michael T. Holy just came back and won again. And it's cool to see the narrative continually change of like, possibly who's the best, or is it because of the meta, or is it because of the teams? Is it because of what team showed up? It was a very fun, interesting tournament to say the least.
No, 100%. And I think, I mean, Kill Team, I think is the most competitive game and the most balanced game the Games Workshop makes. And I think because of that, because it doesn't rely on list building, there's less broken things because there's, you're kind of given the parameters of your team and what you can choose and how many people you can choose. It's a very it's a highly skill-based game, and you really have so much agency as a player. And I think because of that, and also because of the fact that the meta is kind of evolving, and GW does a really good job to keep teams in that middle range where they should be, with a few different exceptions. Like, I think it's because of that you have all these tournaments happening, and it's won by all these different people. It's not the same person winning everything.
Absolutely. There's another one. Do you ever use smoke grenades on Into the Dark? I noticed that a player out here does that quite a lot, and it stops a lot of the shooty teams from shooting them.
I've never really considered it, just because I almost always want to just have better melee. I'm a bit more straightforward in that sense. I would have to reconsider the way I think about the game, and I've thought about it a lot. I'd have to get some more reps in with it, but it would have been good against you and Vet Guard, because like on those maps with the huge open room, if you have the spotter and the sniper diagonally across, anybody I throw on that point on my side in the open room is just getting roasted, because you have the activations to outweight me. So it forced me to use my grot to be there. But then you end up throwing away your grot to someone, and you don't really want to do that. So I think the smoke grenade could have been good there for a turn. But then again, if the person gets first activation next turn, or even second activation, then they just shoot that guy anyway. So I don't know. I've found the smoke grenades really good for just the Rocket Boy and advantage, and then having an initiative gambit the next turn. Like if you see a way to alpha strike like first or second activation, you hit him real hard, you drop the smoke, and then next turn he's there and engage. Or, like I did against Shane in the finals match, last activation turn 1, you shoot something, get the initiative, shoot something again, and drop smoke, and then all of a sudden you have a full health Rocket Boy on advantage turn 3 untouched. And that's really scary.
Absolutely.
But I also, lately I've seen some people on Discord talking about, and I think I overheard or saw Kenny Roll Crit doing this in the game, putting the smoke grenade on the knob. So like he forward deploys, charges, kills, and then drops a smoke grenade, so that I don't think it's possible for him to get shot, period, at all, even if you're standing an inch from a melt-a-gun.
Yeah.
So that is good against shooty teams, but it's also weird because it's 3 equipment points. And that just puts you at a really weird space, because you're going to probably take the dynamite for 4, 3 for the smoke grenades. Then you only have 1 chopper for someone and maybe a climbing rope. So, your Daka boy usually gets the chopper, but then, the Flamer's missing one potentially. The comms is missing one potentially. I think it's player preference, but I don't use them that often. I use mostly choppers and dynamite, and then sometimes calming ropes.
Yeah, he used the smoke grenade in the game versus me to mostly protect some models from my spotter turn one, because I placed him in a very advantageous spot for round one to get onto like one specific point. I was like, okay, you get onto this point, I'm gonna shoot you. And he was like, smoke grenade. Okay, cool. Right now he has a little bit more play. So, but he did put it on the knob, which was interesting because he could also give himself +1, which he didn't. He gave it to the squig after it activated, so it had 3 the next round, which is always a fun thing to do.
Yeah. So he basically was able to do the smoke grenade, give an APL, and then also move somewhere or loot a point or something. Yeah, so that's interesting. So he didn't use it as like the charge into your back lines and then drop it. Yeah, it was defensive for like the other people.
Yeah, and it made it so that I couldn't do it. He actually moved up and threw it because he saw a way that I could give one of my guys a +1 APL, move, dash, and throw my crack grenade at his dynamite guy before he could give his dynamite guy a +1. But then my move dash took me out through the back of it. So I was able to then throw a crack grenade, but I was within, my back half was still within the smoke grenade, so he couldn't shoot me back. So then he just charged him and killed him. But
it's interesting. I mean, I think like I like to rely more on like terrain and precise measurements and heavy cover than I do smoke grenades. Mm-hmm. But if ever I see a scenario where there's an obvious need for one, I definitely consider it. But yeah, I to be honest, I don't really use them that often at all.
Okay. That's fascinating because there's not Kommandos aren't played as much out here. There's like 3 players in SoCal that really play them. And Emmanuel's been absent from the scene for a while because of his son. But like, there's not a lot of Kommandos in SoCal. I mean, that very well may change.
Yeah, right.
But
for now.
Yeah. But like, what do you think is the best counters to Kommandos right now? We might start seeing those pop up.
Yeah, Nurgle Legion, Intercession, running Dueler with the double parry, and maybe Durable. Or even Stealthy is pretty good, but the double parry just kills orcs because you run in there, you get a crit, and sometimes you only get 2 hits, sometimes you get 3. So all of a sudden you parry 2, which is a crit and a hit, and then they're only hitting you with 1, and then you just mulch them, and then you'd fight again on somebody else. So Nurgle Legion, Intercessors. I'd say Vetguard has a good chance into them. Vetguard has a good chance into anybody. There's just so much AP and so many bodies. Other than that, the really interesting thing about Kommandos is that like they don't really have any bad matchups. Like Nurgle Legion's not great. It's not horrible for them. Like it's on Into the Dark, it's worse. But I can play around most players just because I have so many models. I can play the mission super hard. So other than elites, they don't really have bad matchups, but they don't have any like auto wins either, I would say.
Okay.
But I think that's why they're so strong. Cause like a lot of the top teams in the past, like Cults, for example, like, cause they do one thing really well, they can then maybe have a very specific counter, if they're a melee only team like Cults or anybody else, then somebody may be able to hard counter that. But Kommandos are so balanced and versatile. They can shoot really well. They can fight really well. They have a lot of activations. They can cheat the rules a bit by forward deploying, by ignoring dice, by moving up the board on charging them conceal. So I think they're just strong. I think they're strong. I don't think they're broken, but I can understand how they're frustrating to play against, and the forward deploy, especially in the hands of a good player. It's just such a positional advantage, and it is a movement-based game before anything else.
Yeah. So moving on to like some of our my last questions. I foresee them probably getting some sort of a nerf in the future.
Yeah.
And I probably have a couple of guesses of what they may be, but I'm interested as a Commando player yourself. What do you think is probably going to get nerfed?
I mean, it's hard to say. I'd actually genuinely be curious to see what the data is after the next month. Now that the secret's kind of out, so to speak, and a lot more people are taking them to tournaments.
Mhm.
I'd love to see if they're still in that 50-55% win rate, or if they're way up, or if they're just a little bit over. But I think I would say, I mean, maybe they get the activations toned back down again. Maybe they make the Grot and the Squig GA2, or maybe they just literally repeal it and revert it to what it was, where you just take one of them or a boy, which would be, I think, a little bit of a shame. I love using both of them, and I think they're so fun and flavorful and thematic. And when you can only choose one, I almost always would choose a boy, just because only having the Grot is like, it's a little bit of a letdown because he doesn't really do anything all game other than steal a couple points, maybe. So that's one, I think, the activation issue, because having 11 activations is strong. I think it only really matters in a couple of matchups, like what AdMech has 10 people, Novi's has 10 people. But even against teams that have like 8 or 9, it just gives you those final 2 activations as opposed to 1, which is really strong.
Yeah.
So maybe the activation count. And then the other thing I could think of is maybe the forward deploy, maybe limiting it to once or twice per game, or the second time you use it, making it 1+1 CP. I think those are the 2 things that people complain the most about, because at the end of the day, like, commandos can still get diced. Like, you don't really have CP for rerolls because you use them all in ploys. And if you're only rolling 4 dice on 3s, like, you could have 1 hit, you could have 2 hits, you could have no crits. Like, they're not the most reliable unless you're talking about the knob hitting on 2s or the slasher with full rerolls, and the shooters are not reliable unless they have their full rerolls. So I think they're strong, but not like oppressive, in the way that cults or pathfinders or novitiates were pre all those nerfs. But yeah, sorry, not to ramble, but to answer your question, I could probably see it being the activation count or the adjusting the mechanic of the forward deploy, because everything else I think is fine.
Mm. Yeah, it's fascinating. There was 3 of the commando players went 6-1.
Yeah. That was what Liam. And I mean, I guess if you count the final match as a total match, it was a win, but I did lose one of those. So
it was you, Jimmy Kelly, and
right.
Mike Cortez.
Oh, right. Yeah. Mike's a great player too. Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. I mean, but that's also the thing, though. You have some of these players who are like some of the top players in the country also playing a strong team. So it's like, it skews the data a little bit. I mean, we have some people play commandos back home who, like, there's certain people back home that I've played and I've never lost to with commandos. And then there's certain people that, they play a different commandos player and they've never not beat them. So I think a good pilot can take a good team and really push them to the max.
Absolutely. I definitely think that as well. I think that probably Sneaky Git is probably going to get nerfed to just once.
No, but I love doing it so much. It's so much fun. But it's really powerful.
What have I done? It's so powerful, but it's not just like powerful. It's like really fun, and it's like finding the spots and like feeling, oh yeah, like I actually like really played this really well, and I got this good spot, or like now I'm being defensive, or now I'm being offensive, or I'm being clever. Like it's a very rewarding mechanic. But I totally understand having like 3 orcs all the way up the board turn 1. It can be difficult, but then you're pretty much like out of CP the whole game.
Yeah.
But I guess you don't really need DACA. It's nice, but it's pretty much, forward deploy and just a scratch is like all you really need to operate the team at a bare bones level. Yeah. So I could see them reducing that for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, the other thing I could see them doing is something that Can You Roll a Crit offered or said that they would, they should do, was only not allowing the +1 AP onto the Squig. And
like just keeping him, like adding it to the stupid rule. He is, but now he's like super stupid, like Brain Dead. Yeah.
I think if you did those 2 things, I would like to see where the team sits, because I think that would put the team in a little bit. It doesn't change their activations, right?
Yeah.
They still get 11, which is nice, and then they wouldn't be able to cheese the Sneaky Git, but.
Right.
I mean, you're very right. Like the rest of the world will tell us exactly what we want to know.
Yeah. And it is so interesting, like you were talking about before, how you don't have many commando mains on the West Coast. Like over here, we have like no Gellerpox at all, and it's just so funny how like you go to a different part of the country and there are like Gellerpox I still think is very strong, but like you have a local meta where just like nobody plays it, and there's so many teams in the game right now. I think we kind of forget, but it's just so weird that like I don't think I've ever played Gellerpox versus Commandos, and I've only played them like once versus Intercession, and they're like one of the best teams in the game. It's just strange how that kind of works out like that, depending on where you are in the country. And then you show up at a major tournament, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I have to play Gellerpox or Commandos like 6 times. This is going to be rough.
Yeah. So my last stat for you is the Commandos ended up their win rate. Actually, let's have you both take a guess. The listeners can take a guess. What do you guys think the final win rate for Commandos was for Nova specifically?
At Nova specifically, we had 10 Commandos players?
10 Commandos players.
And I know that's like we had like
3 of them
6-1.
3 of them went 6-1.
Yeah,
3 of them went 5-2.
I think like what,
4
over
of
70,
them went
70 or 80% or something.
71%.
Jeez,
wow,
71%.
Yeah. But again, like we said, like all the people playing Commandos, like I think of the 10 of them, I know for a fact like 6 to 8 of us are like some of the top ITC players in the US. Like,
Agreed. Yeah.
So I think that's definitely factors into it. But I mean, you cannot deny how prominent they were and how well they did at this specific tournament. I will say also though, the terrain is very influential in those win rates and how well they did here.
Yes.
Having full Octarius terrain with all the heavy and all the door, they love that terrain.
Mm-hmm.
So were the open terrain different, I think you would have seen that win rate dip a little bit. And that's interesting too, because like that gets factored into all these stats, but it's hard. There's no real metric of like, what did the boards look like when Commandos are going 70%, right? Like, is this open? Is this into the dark? So it's hard to say, but the open boards were really good for Commandos at this tournament.
I agree. They were it was so everyone knows it was very dense in the middle. So there was always usually 2 buildings at least near the middle. Right. If they weren't in the middle, there was like a 5-inch or 6-inch gap between the 2 buildings in the middle. So you could never really get a shot off on anything else, which was, I mean, it was good, but Octarius buildings are very large.
Right.
And, they also have a lot of little bits that stick out. So sometimes
the little rivets you can game for cover and all that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes that can be frustrating, but I think this event was really decent for that. I'm surprised we didn't see more Phobos, because Phobos are also really good on Octarius terrain.
That's true, but they're really bad into Commandos.
Are they?
I think,
did not know that.
Well, because all of a sudden the 12 wound difference with no damage reduction is huge. Like going to 14 wounds on an Intercessor is so massive, because an Ork can charge a Phobos person and kill them in 3 hits, whereas an Intercessor just doesn't happen, and the Intercessors also have access to the double parry. So I have no problems. I like no problems playing Phobos at all personally with Commandos. I think it's a very favorable matchup for the Orks. Okay. And then all of a sudden you make a small tweak, like giving them 14 wounds, or a Nurgle with the -1 damage reduction and better melee characters and a funeral pain. And all of a sudden it becomes a very bad matchup. So just a little tweak, and then it's like a completely different game. But I think Phobos are very strong, but versus Commandos, I think it's really tough for Phobos to win that.
So my last question for you is, I know that you're also a very big Space Marine lover. I've seen your beautiful conversions, your beautiful paint jobs and artwork.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Team Justinian. Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, Justin Timberlake just dropped a new album.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we're all pretty excited about it. And they debuted one of the models with
Mr. Smoke Grenade.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's pretty interesting to see where this team's going to go. Do you have any guesses, or do you think it's going to be a 7 model team, or?
I don't know. I think somebody told me, I didn't actually have a chance to read the full article yet. I think one of the Brooklyn guys said that they hinted that you would just need 6 models to start playing.
That's what I got gathered too, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it will be a 6 operative team, which makes sense. It looks like the standard guys have 14 wounds. The one thing I could see them doing is maybe having the captain count as like 2 models, and maybe he has like a 2-up save and a 4-up invuln or something, and like extra wounds. Or they could just balance the team, because I think there's going to be no equipment and everything's just baked into the data sheet. So they may have more wounds per capita and more access to special weapons, but they can control the power level because there's nothing that players can choose. It's all going to be chosen for them on the data sheets. I mean, that would be my guess. And then maybe you can choose to take the sniper or the Gravis guy. Maybe the Gravis guy counts for 2 slots. I don't know. Hopefully they give Gravis 3 APL, because 2 APL is pretty rough these days on power armor. But I'm excited for it. I have all the models already, and it's perfect for Deathwatch, who is very close to my heart, as you mentioned. Yeah. So I'm going to give it a run when the rules come out and see how it goes. But honestly, now that I've seen the light of a team with like over 10 operatives, I don't think I can go back to elites in the competitive sense. Last season, I did very well with intercession, but I was living in fear every single game, because you just couldn't make a single mistake. You couldn't lose a single Marine, and anybody like Vetguard, who has like 4 ways to kill a Marine with a single guardsman, it's constant fear. Yeah,
I agree with you. I am a elite/horde player at heart.
Yeah,
I can play Space Marines for fun, but competitively, I definitely want more activations than just 6, because I'm afraid of losing 1 model.
It is. I do not like to lose models, which is why I'm very attached to them. Which is why I like orcs so much, because they're very hard to kill.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. Was, are you ever going to get tempted back to the Emperor's side? But I think
if something cool happens, for sure. I mean, I have the models, and they're definitely like my cool hobby project, and I think Deathwatch and Deathwing are just the coolest things to me. I always have since like the 7th grade. I definitely would be open to being tempted. However, from a competitive standpoint, unless the game changes in a crazy way, I just like the ability to play with activations and what that does to the strategy of the game, and how that allows you to develop as a player and really control the game or see the game in a certain way that a 6 operative team it just can't. I think the sweet spot is like somewhere between like 8 to 11 maybe activations, which feels nice to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How about you, G? What do you think this Justin Timberlake's going to come out with?
I think it's going to be your standard 6-man team where you can choose to take the captain or not. And I do think the sergeant's going to have some pretty good rules. Otherwise, you'd never take the sergeant as the leader.
Yeah.
That's pretty much my guess, because it looks like it's probably going to be a 6-man team.
So do you guys think that they're going to go with the Eliminator? Do you think they're going to just keep it just a normal sniper rifle 3/3 mortal wounds 3? Or do you think they're going to do... Because in the last edition, there's 3 different rounds for that.
He's gonna have the rounds for sure. There's no way they're not gonna give it to you.
Yeah, so he could maybe do like, what if he could do like a burst, like the normal sniper shot, and then like the super kill shot. So like you get 1 dice, and if you hit, you do like 10 mortal wounds.
Right. Kind of like the Death World vet for Inquisition. He has the 2 profiles, and 1 hits super hard, but if you roll a 1, then you're just shit out of luck.
Yeah, that would be sick. That would be sick.
I hope so. I think they're going to be a fairly basic team, like even more basic than Intercession, because the whole point they've introduced from the start is like, this is for beginners. It's simple. You have all that. You buy the box. The rules are on the card. You just throw the models on the table and play. I hope that there's going to be some like ways to game them and be competitive and do some cool stuff. But I'm just excited to see what they do, and the fact that you can actually have like a kill team that mixes all these types of power armor, I think is really cool.
That is pretty neat. I wonder this though. It says, if I remember the description right, each one will have a ploy or something that they can use on the back of the card.
Oh,
right. Well, like the smoke guy, for example. Oh yeah, ploy, not the ability, because the smoke grenade is an ability, not equipment. Although it is limited to once per game. The ploy could be interesting. So I don't know if that's a ploy specifically for that one operative, or you have to collect all the operatives to actually know all the ploys the team can use, you know?
Right. I mean, the day that thing releases, someone's buying that box from a store and opening it up right away.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think we'll be able to find that.
I mean, I will if no one else does.
Yeah.
That's happening right away, you know?
You heard it here first.
Yeah. And I don't foresee that. I could definitely see. I mean, usually when things go on pre-order, like the influencers already have everything. So why wouldn't they like they posted it today this morning, last night or something.
Yeah.
So I could definitely see like them coming out. I could definitely see them coming out, Saturday or next Saturday, like for pre-order,
Right.
It usually doesn't take that long. So
Right.
we should have the rules pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, that could be cool. I think that'd be cool. And I'm also really excited about whatever the next box set is. Season 3. I'm hoping like we get out of the urban ruined cityscape and get back to like I remember back when I was like playing 5th edition and 40K when I was younger. It was a lot of grass and jungles and bunkers and hills and stuff. And I always thought that was the coolest thing. So I'd love to get back to like some sort of like death world or some jungle world or something.
Yeah, that would be
We've
sick.
been in the city for too long. I agree.
Yeah, we have. We've been in the city for years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, make sure I'll send you pictures of the Eldar Forest board that I'm making for our
nice.
narrative tournament. So
That sounds awesome.
I'll send them to you. It's going to come out pretty cool. It's going to come out real cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of which, are you guys working on anything hobby wise before we wrap this bad boy up?
I think, funnily enough, I was looking at starting novitiates next as my next kind of kill team because I need to put commandos on a shelf for a while just because I've been playing it for so long. And I ended up actually winning a box of novitiates as part of the very generous prize support at Nova. And I'm looking to model them up and not necessarily do much kit bashing with them, but kind of paint them in a really cool way. I want to like paint their faces as just gold plated face masks instead of skin.
Okay.
And I have a really cool color scheme in mind, but I think because I have the hoods around their faces and there's no real hair or other stuff exposed, it could look like really, really cool and more intimidating than the actual sculpts are if you were to just paint them like faces. But that's the next thing on my list.
That sounds sick.
Yeah.
I got like 3 projects happening: Hearthkin, Pathfinders, and Casterkin all at once. I'm painting like a few models at a time, just so I don't get burned out on one thing. And they'll be done eventually.
Yeah, and by what? LVO, you're going to bring them, G? You have to remember that we still have.
Oh yeah, I'm well aware. Ben's on the clock,
and we're on a clock too.
Yeah.
So
I'm getting stuff done.
Are either of you guys able to make it out to NYO this year?
Well, we actually have a tournament, the West Coast Championship, on the same
time.
days.
Yeah.
Me and Travis have talked at length about it.
Yeah, it'd be cool to get you guys out here because it's happening on the 4th and the 5th, right? For you guys too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, same with us. That's another one I'm looking forward to. That's going to be fun. Year 2 for that.
Yeah, hopefully we can set it up for next year, and that everyone can go to all the events. That's what me and Travis are going to coordinate a little bit better.
Which would be
absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah, and then we have LVO to round out the season. Yeah. It should be pretty exciting. So
that'll be fun.
Yeah, so everyone knows. Last thing is, tickets are starting to go. We're just about halfway through it, and the narrative's already sold out. So if you haven't got your tickets yet and you still want to go, you're going to want to get those tickets, and don't forget to click that affiliate link because it really helps us out. So
yeah.
And it's a 3-day event this year?
Yeah, it's going to be three rounds. We start at 9. We end by 5. There's going to be a 30-minute break in between the first game and the second game.
Love that.
Then there's going to be a 45-minute break between the second game and the third game.
Cool.
And day 3 is the only time that changes. We're going to do a 15-minute break only, but we're going to give out some prizes. So if anyone wants to leave early, they can. So we're going to do some of the sweepstake stuff, and then we'll do at lunchtime, we'll announce all the painting award winners, and then anyone who wants to stay for the final game, we'll give out all the final prizes and stuff like that. Again, in LVO fashion, top 8 will all get something, and we'll kind of go from there. And awesome. Hobby Track will be very present. Come early, drop off your models, and we'll grade them. It's going to be great. It's going to be great this year. We're shooting for the stars. We're trying to get 200 players. So remember, everyone out there, every person matters. If you guys can make it, we want to blow this tournament out of the water and prove to everyone and everywhere that this is the Super Bowl of Kill Team.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. I'd love to be there again this year. Last year was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We hope to see.
Or I
you
guess
out there.
technically earlier this year, but last
Earlier
season.
this year, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
so
it's gonna
weird
be-
to say.
I know, right?
I know. It's been a long year.
Yeah, it feels like it was last year, but it was just a couple months ago. Yeah. But is there any other tournaments that you'd like to shout out that you're thinking about going to this year?
Well, I think I'm going to go to I'm going to the Tampa Open just because I just always wanted to go to like one of the GW official like open events just to see how they are, and it's pretty cheap for me to fly down there, so I'm going to Tampa. Obviously going to the New York Open, which I won last year, which was pretty cool. So this year, and that's hosted by like all our Brooklyn community, like Travis and all the rats and a bunch of awesome people. We're hosting it in Manhattan this time, which is really cool, right on Union Square. So, like you mentioned, it's yeah. So the New York Open is happening on November 4th and 5th this year, and I think similar to LVO, like the tickets are selling pretty good, and there's a few left. And if anybody's interested about that, it's ny-open.com. But it's going to be sick. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be bigger this year. In a different space, and so I'm really looking forward to like LVO next year. Yeah, the end of the season next year, the Tampa Open, the New York Open, and then the World Finals in Atlanta. I'm really pumped that I was able to qualify for that, and I'm really excited to see what they're doing there. Apparently, it's 4 days of Kill Team with 3 games a day.
Wow.
So I think that's the format we're operating under now. I don't know much more than that, but that's the event. It's 4 days worth of gaming, so it's going to be pretty hectic.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's one thing I'm trying to get LVO to expand is so that we can get that extra day, because that adds so much, you know?
It does, yeah.
4 days, they can do something really spectacular, something really fun. Definitely.
I think so. I think it's just a matter of like, hopefully everybody can get the time off and travel in to make it. Cause a lot, not everybody's jobs always cooperate with these tournaments.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Guys, we're getting to that point, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. Adrian, thanks for coming on as always, bro. You are a gentleman and a scholar. Awesome Kill Team player.
You
awesome person.
You are too kind, sir. Likewise, right back at you both. It's always fun coming on and talking about Kill Team anytime.
We'll have you on for another time for sure.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Is there anything that you want to shout out outside of that, Adrian?
I mean, not necessarily. I'm just, I'm just loving Kill Team right now. I think Games Workshop is doing a great job balancing the game and just little tweaks here and there. No major changes because I think the game is so tight. People don't realize that every little change really has a big ripple effect. Yeah, I've just been enjoying it. I mean, I was looking at like back through my past photos and like a year ago. Little over a year ago was my first ever like tournament. So I'm just like feeling great about the game right now and the community and all the people I've met, including you guys. And it's just such a nice thing that we got going here, and it's really tight knit. And I think that it's nice that we're all working together to keep it that way and keep everybody like kind and, competitive, but the right kind of competitive. And I think we're really doing a good job to keep this community like, together and wholesome while continuing to grow and continuing to, sharpen steel with steel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There we go, man.
I'd like to do some shout outs.
Please.
There's we're going to be going over Nova with a couple other guests coming up. It's a great place to network, guys. So influencers come out to LVO, come out to these big national events because, you never know what's going to happen or who you're going to meet. So firstly, I would love to shout out all of Plasma Spam. They were so kind to me, made me feel so welcomed. I flew in, stayed with Orion, and for the first night into Baltimore, and then they all drove me up. We stayed in the same room together to make it more economical. Had breakfast together, dinner, and we all drove back. We all had milkshakes and some Old Bay fries, which were dope. And then, they made me feel really welcome, and it was super kind of them to do. And I look forward to diving more into some of my experiences later on possibly in the next podcast. But I'd also like to shout out my opponents that I played at Nova, which was Daniel. Game 1, he played Corsairs, nearly beat me 17-18. David with Intercession, Game 2. I played really well, and David, so did you, brother. It's a rough matchup. We also played Jeremy from Plasma Spam, one of the homies that brought me up. And this was for the GT, the team tournament. There's a whole nother crew of people. Adrian, you, homie, you.
That was a great game.
You gave me nightmares about sharks. Day 2, Nick Craven, one of my favorite games. Just because that dude, man, we just bro it out, man. I don't know how to explain it, we just vibe on another level. True, another Vedguard player, amazing guy. We both got pretty sweaty and, in a good way, and we both hugged it out at the end. And then, John Reese, can you roll a crit? I had an amazing time with you, and I really appreciate you and the time that we played together. So, thank you everyone from the team tournament. And, I really appreciate everyone who played and said hello, cause they're like, "Hey, are you Dakotah?" I'm like, my favorite line, I'll say it to anyone, be like, "Is it weird to hear my voice come out of this face?" And usually people are like, "Yes." And I'll be like, "Yes, I feel the same." But how about you, G? Anything you want to shout out?
Of course. I want to shout out our patrons. Thank you guys so much for supporting us, helping us do what we do. The community in general for coming to our events. That also helps us do what we do. And if you want to find me on Instagram, I'm on wargaming_studios. I'm also on our Discord at the Squad-Games Discord. Link in the show notes for all of that stuff. And of course, if you're looking to come to any event, we do have the All Valley Team Tournament coming up. That's here in Southern California. That is this month, the weekend of the 23rd and 24th. And we look forward to seeing you there.
Absolutely. It's going to be the biggest kill team tournament in the world. Let's go.
Nice.
Oh, kill team tournament. I mean,
that's true.
Team tournament. Yeah.
Teams are fun.
Yeah. But I'm beat, so I'm going to bounce.
Yeah.
Right,
no, same. I know. I'm literally running on 3 hours of sleep right now and over like 48 hours of being up. So we're doing this. And
time to go to bed.
Yeah.
Until next time, everyone. Peace.
See ya.
Take it easy.